Hello and welcome to the Commerce Journey Podcast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard. I am here with Cory Miller, my partner in crime on all things Commerce Journey. Hey, Cory.
Hey.
How's it going?
How's it going? Yeah, pretty good. I'm eager to talk about this topic today. I'm eager to dive back into the Commerce Journey podcast.
Heck yeah, we're here, and today we're talking about the fear of getting started. You know, this is an existing store owner has fear too, but there is something about making the leap, right? When you're trying to make that leap to actually do it for the first time, it can be really intimidating. We're going to talk about that. Once somebody does get started, as they're getting set up with their store, though, they can always do it with Godaddy Pro. The deal we have at commercejourney.com/go is truly awesome, so that you can get going with your e-commerce website using WooCommerce and a whole bunch of bundled extensions, a free domain, and it is $1 a month for the
$1 for 3 months, I think.
Yeah, $1. I think it's $1 for the first 3 months, or $1 a month for the first 3 months. It's an inconsequential amount of money, and bundles all these amazing extensions that usually are hundreds of dollars a piece. So we are saving you hundreds of dollars getting started with your journey. So no fear on the financial front. You can bootstrap this baby for almost nothing with Godaddy Pro. If you go to commercejourney.com/go, thank you so much to our awesome partners at Godaddy Pro for offering this deal for all of these people starting their commerce journeys. We are so thankful for them.
And if you think about it, this is a prelude to our conversation today. 3 months for $1 is like, it's like multiple things. And one, you have 3 months to get your store ready.
That's right.
Before you actually, it goes up to, I think it's like $29.95 or something like that. But you also have a deadline, in front of you. So I think it's that offer is really good. And we strategically picked this, GoDaddy Pro as our sponsor for that reason, but it really plays into our topic today.
It is 3 months for $1. It's not even $1 per month. It is literally $1. So for the price of a candy bar, can you get a candy bar for $1 anymore?
I don't think so.
You can bootstrap your site and get all the awesome stuff that they include. I mean, seriously, with bookings and product add-ons and tracking shipments with UPS, and even if you do subscriptions, like, it's crazy amounts of stuff that they include with this, plus all their great templates that they have. There's no better way to get started with your store. Literally anywhere. They've put together the best deal they got. All right, that's enough. Thanks to GoDaddy Pro. But we want to make sure folks know that, because that's why we've partnered with them on everything that we do, because they are helping new store owners. And you know what, Cory? Somebody has this fear of getting going. We want to be there to help them, to prevent them from having so much fear that they freeze, right? So
yeah.
What are you thinking on this front? Because you were really passionate about this topic.
I love it. I love it, not because people have fear necessarily and are paralyzed, but that this is where we can come in and really give people some encouragement. This started because we were talking earlier this week, and we were talking about our own little stores that we're contemplating starting. And you mentioned, if you don't mind me saying, like, hey, I haven't done this before, even though you've done a lot of things online and made a lot of money online. You haven't done this specific store that you talked about. And I kind of pushed in, and I was like, tell me why. Not because I don't have fear. I have fear. But I live to help people be free of being frozen. I mean, it just excites me because, there's this Albert Schweitzer quote back in the day, like in high school, I found. And it says, the tragedy of life is what dies within a person while you live. And I really took that to heart. I said, I want to live my life as best as I can, not paralyzed by fear or held back by fear. And fear has multiple names: fear of criticism, fear of failure, fear of success, which is kind of crazy to me, but it happens.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love this topic. I want to help free people, you and I free people, give them permission to go live their dreams, to share their talents with the world through Commerce Journey.
Yeah, that's cool. You talk about the fear of success, but I think another way to think of that is like, hey, if this thing works, what am I going to do? I'm going to be so busy, or I might have to quit my regular job to go full time on this thing. So like, fear of success is real. Like, you want the side hustle, you want the extra income. If it works as well as you hope and it actually becomes your main gig opportunity, that is scary. Like both you and I, we left full-time opportunities to start our own businesses, and in its own way, it's terrifying.
Several times.
Yeah. So it's the fear of starting is real. Or the fear of success is real. I totally get that, because you're going out on an extra limb because you're putting your full faith in yourself. And I think that is at the heart of what this means, this fear of starting with your e-commerce stores. You're putting your faith in your ability to actually put a product together, sell the product, and sell it with a profit, and sell enough of them that it could sustain, the energy that you're putting into it.
Yeah. And there's a lot in there that you talked about the other day that I've heard and had myself over the years. Back in 2008, or I should say 2007, when I was contemplating, starting iThemes, the biggest fear was insurance, health insurance. We had insurance through the employer I had at the time, and I think of these, and I'm gonna share how I got around it. But like, the fear is the obstacle.
Yeah.
So if it's fear of success, okay, let's push down into that. What is that exactly? Where's those fears? Because I think if we can identify the fears specifically that are obstacles, we can do something about it. So my story was afraid of health insurance, not having health insurance. Well, I found out we could go on Cobra for a year and a half. So I at least had some coverage for a while. Now, it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's been twice. So then fast forward to 2020, this year. On the other side, actually 2019, I left Liquid Web / iThemes to go back out on my next adventure. And then my wife had all of our health insurance was with Lindsay. Well, back in April, she left Liquid Web. And again, we had to fall back. We're currently on Cobra Health Insurance.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you that might have serious health conditions and are worried about that, that's a big thing. I don't want to ever underestimate that.
No doubt.
But if we can drill down and figure out what those fears are, we can probably find some ways around or through that obstacle.
So I think one of the things that we can narrow in here, and talking about the variable of health insurance is a great example, because that's so common for any entrepreneur in the United States in particular. I think this is where we get into getting over your fear can start with establishing a plan. And establishing a plan means to take all of these things, these variables, whether it's your health insurance or your cost of initial inventory or the time and energy to get the website together, or how you're going to do your product photography, or how you're going to do your prototype, or how you're going to manage order fulfillment. These are all variables. Best thing you can do is create a plan and start to scratch out these variables, right? Because you put them in a spreadsheet and you say, okay, here's my dollars in, dollars out opportunities. Here's what I have to do to break even. Here's what I have to do to make enough money to go full time. Here's how much time I need to fulfill 10 orders a week, 20 orders a week, whatever the situation is. You start to take the variables and turn them into plans, and that's when your fear can become something in the rearview mirror, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to be clear about that. A lot of times, when I push in and talk to people, the fear is mythical. They start to realize they're catastrophizing, or, some cognitive bias that all humans have. They're aggrandizing it, or it's black and white. I do this myself. No one's immune to these things. But so I say mythical because when you start putting them, let's say on a spreadsheet, like you just, mentioned, okay, well, let's rate it.
Yeah.
How big is the fear? And then ask yourself why, and play the game out for a second, and then give it a couple of days. If it's real catastrophe, give it a couple of days and sleep on it, and then come back and see if the big scary monster is really big scary monster, or a spider crawling on the sidewalk that you can stomp out. Yeah,
absolutely. And another thing is you'll be able to eliminate more variables once you get going. That is one of the beauties in an e-commerce store. You really can start as a side hustle. It's harder in real life. I have a friend who recently started a business in real life. They started a contracting company. And they know, because they put a business plan together, they said, I need X number of jobs. They knew what the market price was for the types of jobs they were doing. It's a painting company. right? So they know like, okay, well, here's how many dollars you get per whatever, however they measure it, square foot of wall you paint. I don't know how they do it, but if you have an X number of dollars per job, he knew I need to win this many jobs because I have this much profit margin, all based on the variables that he took out of the equation. And based on the that information, he was able to say, if I need to win this many jobs, how many jobs do I need to quote in order to know that I can accomplish this? So that's where his testing occurred. Now, an e-commerce store is very similar, right? Because you need to win enough of your visitors to your website or to your store. You need to convert enough of them into customers. You need to know roughly what your profit per order can be to turn it into saying, okay, well, this is what I need to accomplish in order to sustain either the energy I'm putting into this for a side hustle, or how much I need to sustain in order to go full time. Going full time in e-commerce, it's not like you're a freelancer doing, you don't have any upfront costs, right? Let's say you're making 30% per order per year. That is a pretty good return, especially for a new store. A lot of times you have to spend money to make money, and you can operate at a loss for the first, say, $100,000 worth of revenue before it turns into profit. A lot of e-commerce stores do this in order purely to grow, right? They're reinvesting any profit that they have, any gross profit that they have. So, but let's say you get to this 30% of profit can go back to your pocket. Well, if you do 6 figures in sales, you're making $30,000 let's say pre-tax. That's tough for most people to live on unless you're just totally bootstrapping, can rely on a spouse, something like that. In most places, $30,000 is probably not going to be quite enough for you to go full time with like confidence. So you have to figure out what's that math.
Yeah, that's why we talk about, start out as a side hustle.
Yeah.
The Vita bars that we talk about a lot with Anna, it's a side hustle for her.
Yeah.
She sold about over $30,000 to date. It's a side hustle. She's keeping her job with really good salary and really good benefits and really good vacation and all that kind of stuff. And this is a side hustle. She can take some of her discretionary, I'll say, time and energy and pour into a side hustle that could test it out. But the second thing I want to say is something you're talking about. You broke it down with your friend with the painting company. And I liked it. So this is the other part where we start to, catastrophize and just make the monster so big.
Right.
And if we just break it down to numbers, and you started to say that with the exercise with your friend. So, okay, I have to let's say you determine I need to put down $1,000 to buy inventory for your product. And then you do some math and you say, I'm going to sell it at this, and we're just talking, we haven't bought anything right now. We're just pull up a spreadsheet and we start saying, we're going to spend $1,000. This is how many units we're going to be able to sell out of that. Here's our profit. Like you just said, here's the price, and carve out the profit and try to be very conservative. Don't try to be too optimistic about this. And then break it down and say where you can see a very small manageable number, a bucket, and go, okay, I need to sell 100. Can I sell 100?
Yeah.
Like your first thing the other day about physical goods was cost. Right. And that's a big thing for any of us. We don't want to buy a bunch of inventory and say, all that stuff sitting in the corner, $10,000 worth of stuff sitting in the corner. But if we can break it down and just go, to do this, we just have to sell 100 or whatever that is. Break it down and say, this is how many units I can sell. I love to break down these things into the simplest one little number that goes, can I do it? That's a black and white number sitting there versus a mythical fear monster, scary monster out here. Now we've said, Brian, do you think you could sell 100 of these? Like if you had to, even if it took you a year, do you think you could sell 100 of those?
Yeah.
Well, that means you can recoup your investment.
Yeah.
I love breaking this down. We were just doing this exercise for another property we own.
Right.
We were talking about inventory. We were talking about our number. We said we want to double what we did. And we start breaking it down. And we go, oh, that's 15. Well, that becomes way more manageable for you and I. Do we know 15? Now let's write down the 15 people we could sell to. This is a higher price point we're talking about, but like,
yeah, when you need fewer sales, it's more of that manual breakdown. With a lot of e-commerce stores, it's like a percentage, right? So it's overall visits. And so what you'll learn over time is whether it's organic traffic or whether you're paying for the traffic. All of these calculations come way into effect when you're paying for the traffic. because you're spending a certain number of dollars to get someone on the site. And then you learn, when I get someone on the site, what percentage of them make an order? And this is where your multiplier effect can really come in too, because you say, okay, well, I did a test, right? I paid for 10,000 people to visit my website, and I converted 1%. Well, if you could afford to pay for the 10,000 people to visit your website, you converted 1%. Now you have some baseline math, and you figure out, where can I scale this? Do I pay for 100,000 people to come to my website now and look at my products? Or do I maybe make some adjustments to increase the number of people that convert to 2%? Converting from 1% to 2% doubles your sales, just like paying for 20,000 instead of 10,000 people to come visit your site.
We'll share this in the show notes, but my good friend and partner, Jeff Mazier, CFO for Hire, put together a spreadsheet, just what you're talking about. And it was just to put some assumptions to model things out. And then when you modeled them out in the spreadsheet, you take it from this anonymous fear to an actual rational thing you can look at and say, does this feel good? Then you can still bench test it with your emotions. But what you're just saying was, then you start to say, I'm going to be conservative and, be more pessimistic than optimistic on my models. Then you can say, if I just doubled that, there's levers you can start to pull and work on, but you at least have something. And this is the other thing I always tell people, and I try to remind myself of it. Start small. Don't eat the elephant, man. Don't try to do don't try to hit $1 million in sales in your first month.
Yeah.
If you do, hallelujah, I'm going to high five you. But that's called a unicorn. But if you start small and say, I just want to see if I could sell $1,000 worth of something. Start small. Don't bite off too much. And remember, it's still an experiment. Model it out with spreadsheets. See what you need to find out that number that you just have to sell to recoup your investment.
And even inside that, look for the levers that are the easiest to pull.
Yes.
When you and I did some business planning when we first became partners, we said, okay, this is the potential impact, but this is the potential effort for having that impact. And we decided,
we scored it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We were like 1 to 5. How much energy goes into accomplishing this goal? And where we found the sweet spot was to say, hey, this is a lower energy on this scale of 1 to 5. Let's say it's a 1 or a 2, but it has a 4 or a 5 impact on the bottom line. That's where the sauce is, right? And you really take your fear out because you're saying, hey, I can accomplish this even in my spare time because it's less energy to output.
Yes, I'm a big fan on working. I don't want to have to work 80 hours a week. I don't want to have to blood, sweat, and tears if I don't have to. So I'm a big low-hanging fruit. And when we scored that, I thought it was so powerful because you and I made really good decisions. Now, COVID be darned, but we made some really good decisions on that because we ranked it and we had feedback and it gave us conversations to talk through and go, man, let's lay hands on this one. This one is the one we want to do.
Yeah, for
darn
sure.
COVID though.
Yeah. Well, there's always, that's one of it's a fear and you can establish those too. Like what are the risks, right? Sometimes you have a risk that's in that category, anyone that's done a contract of force majeure, like an act of God or something catastrophic. Well, welcome to the catastrophic in today's environment of COVID. But certainly if you can outline what are the risks, I don't get the visits to my website I expect, or my manufacturer for my product increases the price by 50%, or they tell me it's going to be 2 months later to deliver than they expect. Things like that. How do they affect your plan? How can you work around them to still survive? Because survival is the key, because if you survive and you tweak, eventually you can thrive.
And score them like we did, say 1 to 5 or find some criteria and put it out there and then let it set and come back to it. Now, in all of this, it just screaming in my ear is most people have some sort of a partner in the sense of a spouse or maybe a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever that is, right?
Or a friend or a counselor or whatever.
Yeah. And I think doing this type of stuff shows some due diligence that you're in it to win it. You've got investment, you've thought it through, enough. and that you can show people. So if you're trying to convince a spouse, I want to do this, I want to take $5,000 out of our savings and, buy this inventory or do this. You have some justification for that. I still do that with my wife. We're partners in life, man. So that means business too. And so showing her I've thought it through. And then, by the way, her monsters, other people's monsters are going to be slightly different than yours.
Yeah. They may bring up all new fears, but they may alleviate some of yours. They may be like, hey, you need to have more confidence. You're good at this stuff, or they'll be there to encourage you. And then they'll also be able to, find the holes in your armor, and they'll somebody to bounce off your ideas. Take your spreadsheet, your big plan, your business plan. If you do a proper write up, especially if in the ideation phase, like saying, hey, here's my actual plan, what I intend to sell, what the addressable audience is, all those cool things.
Yeah.
You're eliminating variables, and then you're asking people close to you who you trust to poke holes in them. And in a constructive manner, like they're your friend. They're not your enemy. They want you to succeed. So, having the right person to help you do that is important, but we're going to take that part for granted. And you want their feedback. You don't want to hide your plan from the people that you trust, because they're there to help you. They want you to succeed, and they're going to help you eliminate your fears
and prevent you from, your blind spots.
Yeah.
Like, we've all got blind spots, and you and I have different perspectives on things. And that's a good thing, because for me, it's preventing the blind spots of what, could potentially happen. My partners, Jeff and Rebecca, they operate fundamentally different than me. And oftentimes it's a push-pull thing, but we always wind up thoughtfully at a better decision. And so if you approach it that way too, it's I think such a great thing. It's why I have partners. It's why you and I are partners.
Yeah.
You said, I don't want to do this alone. I want to do it with somebody else. So you have somebody to ride shotgun with you on the journey.
So let's just think about one other thing that I have on my mind, which is, okay, let's say you've got all this stuff, you're starting to eliminate the variables, but you're kind of stuck on something, right? There's something that it's there, and you're like, I don't know how to solve for this one. Or maybe it goes differently than you planned for, right? You make estimates, but the forecasting, I took a lot of statistics and forecasting type classes in college, and one of my professors would always say, the first rule of forecasting is that all your forecasts are wrong. And if you don't acknowledge that before you even start, then you're just going to pull your hair out, right? So you're going to have to tweak these things over time. So something's not coming out the way you put it in terms of the potential outcomes. How do you prepare for that before you even start, so that you'll be able to adjust on the fly?
I often think about Lewis and Clark and the expedition. In fact, I was looking at biography, trying to find some good biographies on them, just to think entrepreneurship and e-commerce in particular is an expedition. Most of us don't have a crystal ball and it tells us exactly where to go, But I think about Lewis and Clark journeying across the Northwest, and how did they approach that? I don't know if people had gone before and they got reports back or whatever, but I use every piece of data I can, and models are great now, but you can forecast. And just knowing, the other way I heard that said was, no plan survives the first bullet in action. You can have this plan for this battle, and then once people start shooting at you, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
So I like it. So you have some direction to head in. But for me, it's this. I think it's an analogy, but is to hold it in your hand, the forecast and the plans, but don't grip it so tight your knuckles are white and you don't let go of it. You can't change directions. I could almost promise you 95% of the time, in entrepreneurship, somebody starting a business pivots and change and tweaks the direction they're doing based on customer feedback. The almighty dollar or whatever currency you're in, someone willing to spend is a vote in the direction that you're going. And so you either got to last long enough to share with the right people and then pay you, or change directions. And so that's what I say. With the models and stuff, business plans, they're all good, but don't hold them so tight that you have to be letter of the law. This is the way it goes forever. That is a recipe for doom.
Yeah. I've heard that a similar idea in terms of how coaches work. So a football coach, I've heard people talk about how this particular, say, offensive coordinator, they know exactly the first 12 plays they're going to run in the game. Like they have a perfect diagram of if they have a first down, then they do that, whatever. So they know the plan for the first 12 plays. And if an average game, let's say they run, 60, 70 offensive plays, the rest of it is an adjustment based on what they learn from those 12 plays. So they know we're tweaking our game plan because we got feedback, we got response. How is the enemy, how's the defense responding to our first 12 plays so that we know where to go from there? So it's almost like feelers. And we can do that in our stores as well, right? Like we can plan, here are our first steps because we need process. We need this is what we're going to do. And then we're going to see what the response is. We're going to see what happens. And we need to make sure, how do we sustainably make the first 12 plays equivalent for our e-commerce stores so that we then know how to tweak.
I really love that because you think about that. It's a really good parallel to entrepreneurship and e-commerce is map out your first 12 plays.
Yeah.
But then be open enough to know you're going to get, the bullets are going to fly, you're going to get smacked in the mouth and you got to adjust. But think about it as, again, approach it as an experiment. What are you learning? And the keys for me is this acronym I've kind of been thinking about with all the projects I'm involved in is MAPS. Mm-hmm. What you're trying to learn is message, audience, product, and system to me. That is it in a nutshell. So I actually should start with AMPS or something like that, but it's MAPS because audience is first for me. Who are you trying to serve and support? And do they know, there's questions you can ask around that. Do they know they actually have a problem and they need this? Or are they looking for this actively, this product? Message is, am I connecting their needs, the audience's needs and wants to my product? That comes next. The message is one thing. Then you got product, which is pricing, bundling, packaging, features in the product, all that kind of stuff. And maps back to message, maps back to audience. The final is S, system. You think about an e-commerce system as a system, this is a game. If you've ever played the game Mousetrap, you set up the little board and if you get something just out of alignment, the ball drops and doesn't go all the way around to the, trap the mouse. And that's what MAPS is tweaking these 4 dials. System, thinking through all this other stuff. What do I need to go back and do? I have a system to keep repeating and getting sales? Those 4 things, if you venture into this, and start tweaking those little dials, generally speaking, those are the ones I pay attention for every project. For Commerce Journey in particular, we were talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
We started with the audience. We were like, do we know, again, are we affirming our hypotheses? Is it this audience? Is it that audience? We're tweaking our message a little bit. We're looking at our product. We're thinking about the system of how we get things shipped out and all that kind of stuff. I think those 4 keys with MAPS is key, and it's Commerce Journey. That's what we're trying to help you work on.
Yeah, I love that. And, one other thing you talked about, we talked about these analogies, first 12 plays and then iterate, the battle plan, but as soon as the first bullet is fired, chaos ensues. The individual players though, and then once you're in it, your instincts take over. All the training that you've had in your life of how to do business, you are doing this. It may be your first business, but you have been in businesses or in organizations and you know how to operate. Oh, yeah. Your instincts are going to take over. Your fears come from you're at the starting line. Those, or the race hasn't begun, the game hasn't begun, the battle hasn't begun. Your journey has not begun, and your fear is going to go away because you've begun, and survival instincts and your practice and your process takes over, and you will lose some of your fears just because you start.
Absolutely. In fact, here's what I've been contemplating a lot lately, especially as I'm starting things. You and I are starting things. I will tell you, in this whole conversation about fear, the simplest determinator of success is often the hardest, but it's the most critical, and it's called start.
Yeah.
Try, attempt, begin, go. It's the first bold step out there. It's years ago when you click the publish on the first post status news article. For me, it's the same. Clicking publish, clicking submit, pushing your little lemonade cart out into the sun and letting people see the prices and the message and all of what you're trying to do and potentially buy from you and say, nope, that's not what I want. I'm going to pass go and continue on. But it's taking whatever you're working on and pushing it out into that light, into the arena that Teddy Roosevelt talks about, that bold action, that bold first step. Brian, I'm telling you over and over and over in my life, that is the one thing, is just taking the bold step to do it, to put it out there. Most people are in the camp of the Albert Schweitzer thing. They're in the tragedy camp. They are sitting on their art, their great work in the world, and not pushing their ideas out that could help other people. And we're saying today through Commerce Journey, push your lemonade stand out into the light. Be willing to test your ideas and just see. The definition of failure is if you never try, right? I mean, that's the truest thing for me in this whole getting over your fear or getting past your fear and getting out into the light and letting people say yes or no and vote with their dollar of what you're trying to do. And that's why I say it's the simplest step, but it's often the hardest for people.
I got nothing to add to that, Cory. That is where we're leaving it because I don't know about other people, but I'm fired up. So get out there, do the thing. Go to commercejourney.com/go to get started. Subscribe to all our stuff. Check out Commerce Journey on Facebook. Talk about your fears with us. We'll talk to you next time.